Hello, race fans, and welcome to Shift+F1, a podcast about speedy race cars. Danny O'Dwyer here, once again, deputizing for Drew Scanlon, who is on assignment. Rob Zachney, how you doing? Apologies, I'm once again coming from a hotel room in Los Angeles. Apparently, this is what I do now. What illicit things do you think I'm doing down here? Why do I constantly end up in cheap motels in Los Angeles?
Well, I mean, I'm a passionate devotee of Warren Zevon, so I assume you're just having some sort of drug-induced existential crisis, thinking about how your life led you to this point and how you've thrown away all the opportunities and the love of a good woman for a sad fate in Los Angeles.
Do I have to get into Zevon as well? I feel like there's this big black hole of Americana music that I'm filling in slowly.
So Zevon is like, I think, half American, half UK. I think is
Okay.
and Russian expats, I want to say.
It's a great name.
So
He sounds like a rock star.
yeah,
You know?
But I think you've got his self-titled LP is just a classic. That's one of the best albums ever. So you got to listen to that.
All right, I'll add it to the list, my friend. It's a funny week. We after coming back from on a break in F1 that nobody expected, we are once again sitting on another sort of 2-week break. So there is no race next week. We're going to be back talking about Canada the week after that, and then we're into the European series with Monaco and everything else. So summertime racing is coming, but for the moment we are once again sort of in a holding position here. We do have a little bit of news though. There's not that much news, but we've a bit of news. We've got some emails, so we're going to make the best of it here, folks, and have a good chin wag about Formula One in some respect. I did watch that Formula 2 race weekend though, Rob. Remember we talked last week and I hadn't actually watched it. Mm-hmm. Boat races, man. Boat races were great. The sprint race was crazy. Was it the feature race that basically went down to like a three-way, like basically three cars going right till the finish line? It was wild. Lots of incidents too in that second race because of the rain.
Yeah, no, the second race, it was like either amazing racing or it was like yellow flag. It was like just those two settings toggling between them. But yeah, it's a really fun series, and I think I was really glad we had just done the primer. Because being down there, I was like, oh, hang on, like. It's a funny thing. I think it's maybe harder to get into it using like the F1 TV app because it is so clear like this is the lesser product. You don't get the timing and scoring, you don't get the full broadcast coverage, etc. But if you're there in person, you're just like, hey, I just care about the good racing. It is not inferior in a lot of ways, and so I was really tickled by how much I was getting out of it, having just talked through this stuff and like, oh yeah, I remember this guy. I know that livery, or I know why this guy is for that team. His livery doesn't match. It's a blast, and that was a great race.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yes, and if you want a little taster of it, you can always just go to the F1 YouTube channel, and they have the decently done highlights similar to F1. And of course, if you want more information on it, become a patron and listen to our Formula 2 primer we did just last month. It's gives you details on the sport, but also the drivers and the teams, which is the most important thing, especially in F2, where, as Rob mentioned, for reasons that we won't get into here, some of the drivers do not have cars with their own liveries. With the team's liveries, they run their either not sponsor, but their, I guess, the team that they're associated with, perhaps. So you do see some sort of F1 looking liveries on there as well, which can be a little bit confusing. Yes, but massive shout out to our title sponsors. First of all, happy birthday Kathleen, the Military Industrial Complex, Warizel, RIP Egberto and Igor Furman, TBGP.TV, that video game podcast, Let's Margo Racing, Eaching Wells, Dr. V, Deange, It's a Me Ferrario, Cryptocurrency, Mojo Nixon, Get Rich or Die Ryan, Agave ATX, Cyphus Training, Turf SES, Michael Maves, Cigarette Boats, Telemetrydeck.com, FTC, Bottas Not Last, Drew Stewart, Peak Super Clippy, Bailey Foot, Abraham Getchell, a romance novel called Blown Diffuser, hashtag Bunny for Work, Snigs, Alex Goucher, Max Voltar Keyboards, Jeff Foster, Troy Stammer, William Rumpf, Lachlan the Madden Man, Samurai Love Story, and Jason Kelly. And if I'm a little bit less verbose this week, it is because this hotel room is particularly small, and I am terrified that someone's going to bang on a wall in any second. So, Rob, you're going to have to be the verbose. Use your bellowing lungs.
I hate talking, so no.
You hate talking.
Don't make me talk. I hate talking on the podcast. I hate talking about F1.
Well, let me take this. let me take this first news story. Like we said, there's not all that much, but we'll scrape what there is. One interesting piece of news that has come out. I've got this one. Let's give the headline to the race. F1 agrees plans to ditch 50-50 engine power split for 2007. So this is a bit of, I mean, that's the headline that's been going around. That's what people have been sharing on Reddit. The sort of reality of it is that they are looking at something closer to a 60-40, 60 being engine, 40 being battery, for next year. So they had talked about doing a change leading into 2028 prior to the most recent races, prior to the start of the season. Basically what's happening is they are pulling forward. They had a meeting last Friday involving teams, the power unit manufacturers, F1 and the FIA, and they basically said that they are going to bring that stuff forward and they're going to look for essentially allowing the teams to get a little bit more out of the engines so they can essentially stop, more than anything else, I think, the super clipping element of all of this.
Yeah.
To me, this feels like a smart decision. Like, again, I am not with the big crowd of people who think that all of these regulations were a mistake. I think it is better to swing for the fences and then sort of see where you are, which is kind of what's happened here. And at the very least, I'm glad that everyone involved is looking at the issue and taking it seriously. And we obviously saw a lot of changes come in from Miami already with regard to how the batteries are allowed, or rather the battery powered element of the engine is allowed to harvest from the battery the amount of power it can do so and when it can do so and stuff like that. So this seems like them just kind of getting on top of it and being like, okay, next year we're going to effectively get rid of the biggest issue we have with this whole thing, which is that ultimately there isn't not enough battery power to get these cars up to their top speed on these long straights.
So I can't find the email, but somebody emailed in that I want to say it was that Heinz-Harald Frentzen was doing an interview on like German TV, and it was implying that the teams had also vetoed using some like front wheel drive electrical assistance because Audi has so much experience running programs like that.
Oh,
because
that's
of WEC.
funny.
And they were terrified that Audi would show up and just like wreck shop because they know they really understand how that works, which is kind of interesting just because like distributing it that way and having another place to put an electric motor might have actually made some of this like less acute. I don't know how the engineering would have played out, but it's an interesting like path not taken. So this is of a piece with Nick Tambazis, the FIA director of single-seater racing, was also saying that one key takeaway from all this is they really need to stop letting the manufacturers have the veto power over what the engine formula looks like. And there's a lot of fairness to this. I remember when they were considering these changes, it was so clear that this was being driven by engine manufacturers will only come into the sport if electrical is prioritized.
This is like the reason people talk about Honda's interest in the sport again. Is that, or do you think
I'm not
wider
sure
than
Honda was much of the case, but I know Volkswagen, aka
Okay.
Porsche and Audi, was hugely into this, and so like they were really pushing hard for that. Remember, F1 tried to land Porsche, that fell apart with Red Bull, but then they did get Audi in there. But you know what Tambaza said was, in terms of where we want to be in the future, we need to protect the sport from the world macroeconomic situation, meaning we cannot be hostage to automotive companies deciding to be part of our sport or not. We want them to be part of our sport, absolutely. That's why we work so hard to secure new ones to participate, but we can also not be in a position where if they decide they don't want to, we're suddenly left vulnerable, so we need to keep working for that cost reduction. And I think the other part of implicit there is this is partly where the aperture is opening for a move back to like pure internal combustion. Tambazas talked about people aren't really giving us much credit for the fact that the sustainable fuels thing actually worked out pretty well. And again, it is surprisingly robust, the approach they took. The big thing is they're not doing offsets, and they also said you can't just like what we do in the United States with ethanol, right? You can't just grow a bunch of a crop specifically for fuel and then turn it into fuel and be like, that was green as hell, look at us. F1 like didn't allow that either. It has to be like either recovered energy or like plant matter that isn't being used for other purposes, replacing like agriculture. So they're opening the aperture for a return to internal combustion engines, and partly that is they're easier to manufacture and make. You'd be less dependent on like you'd be less dependent on like Mercedes, Ferrari making enough engines for everybody in the sport. And you don't require necessarily the same robust like power unit R&D team. You can just have engine people working on this like we did once upon a time. So there's increasing evidence that like there is growing feeling that a move back toward more internal combustion engines might be the way to go. I have no real feelings about it, except in that like it would make the worst people in the world really happy.
Very happy.
So it annoys me. But like I wouldn't mind it, especially because like if you can like actually have sustainable fuels, the actual like energy cost of running an F1 race is pretty much like less than a drop in the ocean in the scheme of things. But I think for me it's like I'm also not sure the particular. I'm not sure hybrid was necessarily the enemy either. It's just they seem like they've gotten this formula a little bit wrong. And the thing I keep returning to is I was talking about this with the folks I went on my Miami trip with. Everyone does feel like everyone who learns about what throttle mapping is loses their mind about it. Everyone who learns that like the driver's inputs in the car are heavily mitigated by like throttle mapping. It kind of breaks their brain a little bit because it really does seem to run counter to this idea of the drivers driving the car unassisted, and the fact that you have this like energy spend recovery model that's sort of been taken out of the driver's hands and is mostly like we've done all the math and you guys just like pilot the car around here. I feel like if I had to pick an area where like the hybrid rules kind of went astray, it's this, right? That it didn't become an interesting like strategic resource battle the way it is like a little bit in Formula E. Instead, it becomes this really arbitrary like, yeah, sometimes the car just runs out of power. And then it slows way the fuck down to try to get power. And that isn't really, it just does that now sometimes. That doesn't feel great. Right, I think it would, and boost mode, overtake, it doesn't feel like it's offset that, where it's like you're getting the cool, oh shit, like now they're really, burning the candle at both ends to do this overtake. It hasn't worked out that way. It doesn't feel like they're going to afterburner mode in like Top Gun.
Yeah, and I think some of that to me, I again, I'm not an engineer, I don't know, but I do think some of that is downstream from the reach to 50-50, like the sort of trying to get these cars to be able to do it lap after lap. There were some elements that they were like, okay, the drivers cannot do this part on their own. Like we need the like a smart car that essentially is able to harvest itself, and this is the way to do it. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. So in a way, I feel like the 60-40 makes sense in the short term. I think I would like them to stick with the battery stuff. I mean, I have my own sort of like, and as I'm sure you do as well, like my own sort of personal reasons why I prefer reliance on battery, sort of on a personal level. And I don't have an electric car, but both of our cars are gas cars. But I don't, I think just autonomy, individual autonomy as well. It's great to be able to not rely on so much on petrol companies when it comes to fueling your cars. Direction of travel of technology, stuff like that. Like you'd hope that battery stuff, obviously it's been getting better. We look at Formula E, for instance, in the first season when they were literally swapping cars in the pit lane. Something I kind of miss, actually. It was very funny.
Yeah, that's the thing is, it was kind of neat because, like, let's face it, you see those photos of the old, like, 24 hours of them sprinting from the starting line into the car, and you're like, that's pretty cool, though.
That's very funny. Yeah, it is. It's massively dangerous, but it's very, very funny. You could twist your ankle on the way into the car,
No, I'm with you, and I think on a long enough timeline we're going to see it all, dude. Like I think we're gonna see more,
yeah.
like more hybrid power in the sport, and then we're gonna see like there's gonna be a cycle where it's like we're going back to V8s, and then they'll be like we're bringing back hybrids. People have said they miss them, and like so I think in a long enough timeline, like this is all arbitrary, right? There is no, and I think that so much of some of what this discourse is like the for a long time, Formula One just advanced in parallel technology, right? Like active suspension comes in pretty much the second you have onboard electronics that can manage something like that and you can program it to do it. And so there's no conflict between what you can do technologically and then what an F1 car is. They just sort of grow in parallel.
Things like traction control, I guess, is where it deviates, you know.
Well, that was the end of it. Like the second they looked at this and it was like, whoa, this is like taking away from the skill and artistry of the sport we love. That sort of broke the connection between, like Formula One is just whatever, anything goes within this broad rule set, and it's about like the most advanced cars with the highest performance. The second you started saying like, well, hang on, that you can't have that, we need to adjudicate that, or this needs to be in the driver's hands, it turned into exactly this, right? Where it is, we are now sort of making the rules of this game much more than just having an organic motorsport take shape.
Yeah, and I think ultimately one thing that, you know, when I was growing up, assuming, you know, as a child, assuming that like, Formula One, the idea is that eventually it'll reach it'll figure its formula out, you know what I mean? But that's obviously never, ever going to happen, because what happens eventually is that at the end of one of these technology races, or at the end of one of these epochs of F1, you run into everyone's sort of mastered it. There's no wiggle room. Like a part of the sport is changing the rules every few years. Like you need to do that to keep everything interesting, I guess, entertaining, competitive. Like it's just part of the you know, it's part of the heart of the sport in many ways, is the tech race that's going on in the background. So in a way, some of these technologies are just in playgrounds for the teams to play in and fight in before they get on the track and while they're on the track. So, you know, there's this sort of interesting dance where it's not just about trying to make the fastest cars, or it's not about trying to make the most high performance cars or the easiest cars to drive. It's about making interesting racing, you know, especially now when, like you said, so much of this technology has sort of metastasized at the top.
Well, and real quick, just a last thing I'll say on this, because it comes up a lot with Max. And that's our next news story, in fact, is Max is racing in the 24 hours of the Nurburgring 24 hours. He's driving a Mercedes for Windward Racing, which is one of the better GT3 teams out there. Really, really iconic cars that they run. So I expect he's going to do well. But now he's not racing in hypercar, so it's the parallel isn't 1-to-1. But the thing is, hypercar replaced the prototype series, and in the process became much more like what their GT rules were, which is again balance of performance type stuff. And if you look at if you leave things really unrestricted, you end up in a place where prototype programs ended up, which is you only had like 2 teams able to compete in it at a time. And basically it would be like Audi showed up and just dominated for years because they were like, yeah, we would like to dominate. We would like to have a bunch of 24-hour victories for a few years here. And they invested a ton. And I think Peugeot tried to keep up. Couldn't, never really did produce a viable rival. And then Audi got tired of it, you know, that you're not beating anyone. You're just kind of like doing it year in, year out. And then Toyota came in and they did it for a few years and had a dominant program, but you never had a viable or robust field there. And so it was like, yeah, anything goes. You can have these like ridiculously high performing cars, but the cost to entry, the advantage of an incumbent in the space is so overwhelming that like eventually nobody sees an upshot in being part of it. And so the name of the game across the board has been kind of participation trophies for everyone, right? That like the hypercar formula is like manufacturers can come in. We know that, for instance, there are certain optimal things you can do where it's like, well, this is the optimal shape of a car and this is the optimal sort of power unit. The reason we haven't seen that convergence is they use balance of performance to allow anything to work. I think there's a car in hypercar running like a V12 effectively, and they let that ride because that just works out with BOP. So like, you know, there is no there is no pure racing anymore in terms of like the engineers get a clean sheet of paper and you do whatever you want. And those days are gone forever.
Speaking of the 24 hours of Nurburgring, have you seen that the event is sold out, I believe, for the first time in its history because of Verstappen fans making the pilgrimage to it? And I think there's some reporting out of Germany, and most of it's in German. I just saw it on the F1 Reddit. The event organizers are basically asking the fans for help when it comes to getting them into the region and to the track. I assume based on traffic and everything like that. Because it's going to be rough. Yeah. I've been there before. It's I went to a rock festival up there, Rock am Ring, years and years and years ago, and it is pretty remote. Like it's up on top of a hill in a large. Germany's fairly well populated, but it's the
size of a county.
Yeah,
like it's,
yeah. I mean, the track is huge as well.
It's a ridiculous track because they're running the Nordschleife, right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So. No, it's a ridiculous track, and I mean that's the trade off with a lot of these great old race tracks is like they really are. They make more sense for like the camper crowd, people who are willing to just like trek through a few miles of forest and field to get to their vantage point. But they are not spectator events. These are just places where like and that's kind of why they're irreplaceable. We can't just go out and make more of these.
And I did camp there when I went to the festival, and I you know what, I wonder if it's also a case of like, the amount of money they've spent on, marshals and food. You know what I mean? Like I wonder if there's like lots of downstream issues from just the amount of people turning up there, but. Yeah, you're right. It's a very unique track to try and police, I think, as well. So hopefully everyone stays safe and has a fun time. That's this weekend, is it?
Yeah.
Excellent.
WEC has been hard to watch. I think in the U.S. it might be on HBO, but it's not the easiest series I found to watch.
Do they show them on YouTube?
Eventually, they do upload these races to YouTube. Yes.
Okay. They don't do them live, do they? Over there.
I don't think so. I think you get highlights pretty quickly, but you don't see the full like event because they have broadcast partners that have to have like exclusivity for a certain period. So,
well,
speaking of broadcast partners,
yes, good layup. Good job.
Yeah, so Sky signed a long-term deal with Formula One. The word is they paid $1.35 billion for broadcast rights in the UK and Ireland through 2034, and I think in Italy through 2032. For comparison, Apple's deal is supposedly $750 million for US rights through 2031. I want to say. So that gives you a sense of the scale we're operating at. It's interesting because like Sky apparently had years to go on this deal, and now they've got a longer term deal. And some of the analysis I saw over at the race was, this is coming from some people associated with F1. Sort of the Ecclestone model, right? Was you just told race promoters, broadcasters, like get in the octagon and fight. Which of you wants it more?
He's a wheeler dealer, the man sold cars for a living.
Right. Well, he also was like a really profoundly zero-sum guy, right? Like the only thing I'm getting out of this is like what I can squeeze out of you, and until I can see like there's blood coming out of you, I'm not happy. The paradigm that F1 says they're trying to use is like, and I think you can see this was an issue with the Ecclestone years. When you do that with partners, they really don't feel confident in making long-term plans around you. If they broke the bank trying to get across the finish line to get the deal done, then they may not be confident that they can do it again, or they might need to make some really bad decisions to try and recoup what they sunk to get this. And so the approach F1 is trying to take is like they want these partners to co-invest effectively, and so you pay for the broadcast rights, but then ideally, because you're going to be around for a while, and you want to keep this going, you want to grow the sport, you will also then put more effort to making sure that your side of the product is executed to a higher level as well. We'll see. I do wonder if this, you're beginning to see, the Apple deal parts of it, you're starting to move. It feels like you're moving them closer in the calendar to the Sky deal. I do wonder if, like, at some point F1 is going to try to like sync it all up and do like global broadcast rights or broader broadcast rights at least. But they say they really don't want to do global stuff because their feeling is different media companies have better understanding of their local markets, and so they seem quite happy to have Sky run Western Europe, and then Apple becomes the US.
It is interesting though, because I think, obviously these deals are very, very complicated, and like you said, are more than just the pure money of it all. Like Sky, it's funny, they have become sort of synonymous with so many sports in the UK and Ireland. Growing up, they basically sort of were partners in the Premiership, launching, and they, bringing 24-hour sports coverage to the world, much like news coverage had sort of happened in the 90s as well. And then obviously when they launched the F1 channel, that was them sort of trying to dominate a market that for a while there had been like, fought over between the BBC obviously had it for a long time, and Channel 4 had it for a time. I think ITV might have had it for a time. And then Sky came in with the big money bags and sort of, have now been the home of F1 in the UK and Ireland for a very long time. I did wonder though, because we talked about this with regard to F1 TV's own sort of in-house broadcasting team and programmage and all this sort of stuff, that they were sort of, edging Sky out. Like even now, if you go, the Sky broadcasts I think are still available on Apple TV. The first race I managed to get it, but it was really hard to find on the app. It was like buried, not in the Formula One section, but you could eventually find it. I haven't been able to find it. The last race I was just struggling to find it, and in the end I just went with, and I bounce between the two because there are times where I do like listening to Brundle and Crofty, and there's times where I don't. But if part of me found it interesting that they were sort of doing this, but like you said, I suspect there are elements to the UK and Irish market that are very particular, and Italian, I guess you referenced as well, that are particular and complicated. And what's the alternative? I guess it's an American tech or broadcast company attempting to do the same thing. So I don't know if Apple TV penetration is as big in places like Italy, for instance. There could be a lot of different reasons why, or maybe it just makes sense to run parallel because you're getting your stuff out there on the Apple product, but then also there is it's a way to scoop up more people. Maybe it makes the audience bigger. I'm sure there's a multitude of very sensible business reasons for it.
I do wonder, because there's a time where it seemed like the writing was on the wall. They really want to be doing everything in-house. But it does seem like, I think there is a bit of, you'd have to go really far. Like, being able to do what Sky does requires a different scale of operation than they do. Like their broadcast shows, not their broadcast, but like their in studio shows on Sky. That's a different level of like capacity that they have. They have a huge bench of experts they can bring on to sort of flesh things out. Like the Sky F1 coverage is really freaking good, both in presentation and substance. F1 could probably get there, but it would require a ton of investment. And at a certain point, you start asking, like, is this where we should be making our investment? So I think you're good outsourcing some of this, making sure that Sky has this set up in case you ever need to lean on it, right? In case like the winds ever change, it's like, well, it's actually getting hard for F1 to do this itself. So now it's good that we've got this English language broadcast ready to rock. But yeah, I also think like I think there's a bit of the F1 TV approach is like increasingly like kind of sickos only, which I think is good. The tech talk, the real like nitty gritty dives.
That's a good point.
And I think it's not the worst place for it, but I do find myself missing some of the access to the Sky TV stuff. Like the Sky's pre-race show is an incredible like product. That's like 2 hours of really interesting F1 content.
Edited
the
features.
F1 TV equivalent is not.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it is funny how F1 TV. Now that you mention it, I always thought it would be the more sort of consumer-friendly version, but it might actually be the sicko version. Now that you mention it. But yeah, anyway, if nothing else, the future of F1 on British Isles broadcasting has been established through 2031. Do you remember when we used to say 2020 was a futuristic year? 2031? Like, I don't know, man.
I don't like hearing it.
I don't like it either. That's all the news we have this week. We have some emails, though. shiftf1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails if you want to shoot your emails in. We should have emails as well before the race podcast next week. Although I'll be honest, I don't. We're gonna have to. Our team is a little bit scrambled at the moment for reasons that we cannot avoid. So apologies. We'll explain at some stage. But I'm also not going to be around next week. Unfortunately, I will not be in my weekly trip to an LA Motel 6. I will be on a boat where there's no internet. I'm taking a vacation with my family. But yeah, I'll do my best. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Bear with us, folks. You know, we put a lot of time and effort into this thing. So, but sometimes, life responsibilities get in the way, and it has us a little bit scrambled. The summer stuff should be pretty fine, though. I'm thankfully coming back from some filming in Europe at the start of June, and then I'm not going anywhere for the summer. So we should have. Be sort of back to normal then. But yeah, bear with us for the moment. Rob, you collected some emails. You got a couple in there for us?
Yeah, real quick. Adam writes in, I can't resist replying to your Drive to Survive rundown. Red Bull Cola is amazing. The ingredient list is diabolical and runs the gamut from real cola nut, yes, cola has always been a nut, through to mustard seed, ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, lime, vanilla, licorice, galangal, mint, pine, mace, and clove. It is absolutely an acquired taste, and I think these days only available in Austria. Red Bull Cola was advertised on the F1 car from at least 2018-2025, which was deeply confusing given that one could not get it in those years. Personally, I still import it, not least because it reminds me of grad school in England back in 2009 when it was ubiquitous. It has no comparator in taste, and it may as well not be cola.
That is bizarre. Clove and cardamom. It's, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like you just made a drink with like your granny's, ingredient drawer, like her seeds drawer. You just kind of threw everything in. That is fascinating. God. Yeah, I do want to give it a whirl. This person, do you know where they live? Because they're importing sodas internationally.
Seems like it might have been the UK.
Okay, seems like an expensive pasta. It must be really good. It must have the sauce.
Yeah. I'm now, because I'm like, did I see it when I worked at Red Bull? I don't think I did. But now, like, just hearing that delicious brew.
Only the C-suite got it at Red Bull, Rob. You were too much of a peon. They only let you have the sugar-free Red Bull. They wouldn't even give you full fat. You got to work up to it.
Okay, so this I wish Drew were here for this, but this email is titled "The Time an Airliner Landed on a Racetrack." Hello, Shifties. Yes. In light of the previous podcast email about landing a jet on Shanghai Strait, I thought y'all might be interested to know about a real incident where an airliner landed on a racetrack in 1983.
Whoa.
Due to a faulty fuel sensor, miscommunications, and metric imperial mix-ups, Air Canada Flight 143 took off with less than half the fuel it needed.
Ooh.
When both engines sputtered out mid-flight and with no page in the manual for dual engine failure, Captain Pearson put it... Wait, isn't there a Pearson Airport?
I mean, it's a common surname.
Yeah, but I'm wondering.
Oh, you think it's named after him?
I wonder if this is how you end up with an airport named after you.
Oh, maybe.
Captain Pearson put his glider experience to work and set First Officer Quintal to calculate how far they could go. Determining no airports were in range, Quintal suggested the decommissioned RCAF Gimli, where he had once served, and with ATC approval, they redirected there. Unbeknownst to the pilots in ATC, RCAF Gimli had been converted to the Gimli Motorsports Park Danny, check to make sure this email isn't pulling my leg. There's a Gimli
you think this is
Motorsports Park.
Do you think this is a Lord of the Rings fan?
That it's being called Gimli is really bothering me here. The RCF Gimli had been converted to the Gimli Motorsports Park, and on that day, the Winnipeg Sports Car Club had just finished hosting a race. Parts of the runway had been incorporated into the track, and a guardrail placed down the middle.
Oh boy!
The area was surrounded by campers, cars, and spectators, and without engine noise, people on the ground had little warning of the danger.
Oh, that's
Needing
crazy!
To lose altitude without gaining speed and lacking hydraulic pressure to deploy flaps, Pearson decided to try a forward slip maneuver. Typically only used in gliders and light aircraft, the pilot applies rudder and ailerons in opposite directions, causing the plane to turn sideways. And to dip, but before hopefully snapping back up to level. It works. And the plane lands straddling the guardrail. The nose gear failed to lock into place and collapsed shortly after landing. This proved fortuitous as the extra friction
slowed it
helped
down.
Bring the plane to a stop, avoiding two kids biking on the straight. A fire broke out of the nose of the aircraft. Marshals and drivers on the ground used their extinguishers to quickly put it out. There were no fatalities. And the only minor injuries occurred at the rear side, which was at a much steeper angle with the nose down. Dubbed the Gimli Glider, it is a legendary story of airmanship and crisis management and tangentially related to racing. Hope you all have enjoyed this little diversion in dark times. Oh, hang on. There's pictures, bro. Hang on. Let me...
Yes, Gimli Motorsports Park.
Send you this picture.
Does exist. I have the picture of the looking straight down the barrel of the of the plane.
Yeah.
And it is basically just looks like it's regularly parked.
That is
crazy. That is absolutely insane.
It kind of sounds like with the fire, they may have been lucky that there was a motorsports event there.
100%. And then doing that with a plane where you don't have any thrust is insane. Like trying to stop a plane from, like, because you're essentially just fighting stall at that stage the whole way down, because you're trying to make sure that you don't have too much speed. But then, like, the weight of that back of that plane with all those people and cargo, like, that is, oh my god, that's incredible. Unfortunately, Gimli Airport is not named after this guy. It's named after the 14th Prime Minister of Canada, but it should be. Sorry, not Gimli, Pearson Airport. Gimli Airport.
Yeah, Gimli was the Gimli was the first Prime Minister.
Yeah,
never thought I'd be forming a country with a Quebecois.
Great pull. They kicked that's why they kicked all the elves out of Canada.
Yeah.
Back then, yeah.
That is
what a story. Wild. Oh my god. That is insane. How has there not been a movie made about this one?
Dude, that is so cool. Like the level of sang-froid that like pilots have to have in those situations is ridiculous. Our next email is action required for your count. Sean, welcome to Ammo Latino. To ensure you stay in the loop with our exciting updates, please confirm your email. Okay.
I was very confused. Did you say Ammo Latino?
Ammo Latino.
So is this ammo to be used by or against?
This feels
either way. Well, not either way.
Those
aren't the same thing. I retract that statement. That is okay. Ammo Latino. I mean, yeah, it kind of sounds like something it'd be. Is this a GTA 6 marketing?
Dude, it feels like Ammo Latino is marketing directly. Okay, so Team Tan writes, "Hey guys, on the recent topic of Switzerland being a weird country, I thought I had my own perspective. I am Swiss, born and bred, but crucially, I am not white, ethnically Swiss. Instead, I am Asian, specifically half Singaporean, half Thai. I lived until I was 18 in Switzerland, and since then have lived in several different European and Asian countries, so I have a more international detached
That's not a good start. They got out the second they were allowed.
It doesn't bode well for Switzerland here. Everything the American and Switzerland emailer mentioned is painfully accurate. Going beyond just housing, they are very anal about their garbage and recycling too, with everyone being assigned a place for their rubbish, which must be strictly categorized. My French teacher once forgot to dispose of his bag of trash to his assigned dumpster near his house and decided to throw it away in a random neighborhood.
Uh-oh.
A few days later, the bag of trash showed back up at his doorstop. doorstep with an angry note attached addressing him by name and a threat of a police report if it was done again.
Wow.
Turns out a local resident noticed the out-of-place trash bag, opened it, rifled through it, found my French teacher's personal details and address, and had the bag sent back.
Hey, man.
However,
there are some things you learned during World War II about ratting on your neighbors that, just kind of stick around.
Yep, Swiss making sure nobody's getting asylum here. However, I also did want to bring up another topic that perhaps is more related to Shift+F1, driving licenses. Similar to other countries, you are required to do a set number of instructed driving hours before you qualify for your test, and you must also do a theory test. Beyond that, there are several more requirements. To qualify for a learner's license, to do your instructed driving hours, you must first do 2 courses. First aid, where you learn CPR, bandaging wounds, etc., and 2, sensitivity training. This is how I would best translate it. Sensitivity training is 40 hours of required class time where you learn about car accidents and their gruesome nature and the various ways your body could get fucked up after a crash. We would watch videos of car accidents and people getting very hurt, sometimes fatally, and discuss how it could have been prevented and what surgeries the victims then needed. I believe the purpose of this was to shock students and to understand that driving a car is no joke and people can get seriously hurt. After these 2 classes, you can do your practical test, and assuming you pass, you are then awarded a temporary license, which lasts for 2 years. At the end of the 2 years, you are expected to attend 2 additional classes to convert it into a permanent license for life, no renewal needed. The first class is defensive driving training, taking place in specialized facilities. Here you learn how to drift, experience aquaplaning, and learn how to react, gain back control of the vehicle, experience driving on ice, learn what it feels like to run over a human, a dummy of course, and experience driving under the influence.
What?
And experience driving under the influence. For the latter, they have eyeglasses which simulate what your vision looks like after a certain number of pints, i.e. 1 pint, 2 pints, 4 pints, and 8 pints. You drive around a simple obstacle course with each pair of glasses. Trying to drive it with the 8-pint glasses was a nightmare and genuinely made me feel like puking. I still remember the intense headache I had for several hours, even after removing those glasses. The second class is ecological driving. Here, they teach you techniques on how to save fuel while driving, such as speeding up and coasting, early braking, early late gear shifting, and using inclines to your advantage. There are many hoops to jump through to get a simple driver's license. Are they troublesome? Yeah. But are they effective? Arguably also yes. Switzerland has among the lowest fatality rates on the road, about 2 per 100,000. In contrast, the U.S. is at about 12 to 14 per 100,000.
USA.
Anyway, USA. Thought you guys might find this amazing. Did you also know that Switzerland has a navy?
Really?
Nothing. No further. Just leaving that. That's a Wikipedia rabbit hole. Just baited.
That's a great ... Allow it for the next email.
I feel like that's like lake defense, right? That's got to be like the way like there were naval actions on the Great Lakes and on like Lake Champlain in the War of 1812.
Well, the way the Navy also always has helicopters and stuff. You know what I mean? Like they're not
usually, but usually you have ocean access. They have none, so it has to be like a lakes thing, I think.
I don't think. Does Ireland have a navy? Do we have a navy in Ireland? We barely have an army.
Yeah,
and we must have something. We have a Coast Guard,
Water Guard Eye, or something like that.
That's crazy. That's a great email. Big fan. That's of the. I mean, 40 hours of watching people in car crashes seems like it might actually make me go crazy, like sort of a Clockwork Orange style.
A bit. It is interesting though. Like it is like I Americans do not think about how stuff could go wrong, and they just don't. And you have like one class, like you take your little driver's education class, and there's like one of those classes, like one class segment, so like 90 minutes or whatever, you learn about like, and this is serious. But nothing equivalent to, hey, let's look at some actual incidents and what the consequences were. And then also, how could this have been avoided? It's the funny thing, right? It's like the good kind of goes with the bad. Like a really anal retentive, like high social conformity control country is also going to be really good at, hey, if we're going to give you this driver's license, like you really need to know what you're doing. This bit about like going to a defensive driving course before ever getting your license, everyone should take those, because like your first exposure to aquaplaning or hydroplaning should not be when it just happens to you and you haven't encountered it before. That's
Scandinavian countries do that a lot as well, obviously, because it's just so prevalent.
What's Ireland's approach?
All the ice. The Irish driver's licenses, we don't do any of that sort of stuff. My dad did a defensive driving course to bring down his insurance, but then he worked in insurance, so that was kind of just like a thing. So he advanced driving, I think it was called, and I think he did some of that stuff in there. But no, most people don't. The Irish driving test, though, is quite hard. Not as hard as the English one. The English one is legitimately like, I think a lot of people fail multiple times. The American driver's license by proxy was absolute ridiculous. I failed the Irish one 3 times, I think. I never got my Irish driver's license. I moved before I resat it. And they get you on anything. Like I got dinged on. I actually got dinged on something I didn't think I had done, but I had hit the curb when I was doing my parallel parkings that he hadn't noticed. He thought I'd hit the brake, so I felt like it came out in the wash, I guess. But I think I failed it twice, maybe, and then never got the third one because I moved to the UK and then I lived in London, so I didn't need it.
So when you go to Ireland, you can't drive there?
No, I have a US driver's license, so I can drive there fine. Yeah,
But they shouldn't recognize. It sounds like none of these countries should recognize our driver's license because like we sound like assholes.
In some countries, you have to get like an international driver's permit if you have an American license. Maybe not maybe it's for all licenses. I'm not sure. When I went to South Korea, for instance, I had to go to the DMV and have them basically give me a special certificate so I could rent.
I would just log into my Gran Turismo account and be like, so here's my B license that I completed. So I think we're good to go. The other question I had here is the trash thing, Danny. What's the trash? Because here's the thing, like you can sort of mock it, but at the same time, like trash disposal is tricky, especially for a tiny country without a lot of like easy access to open land. Like Switzerland, you probably don't want to be like sending tons of waste to like you don't have landfill space, or you're sending it out of the country. So I'm like I can sort of see where they get at this, and I've heard similar things where like Japan, you know, I sort of take for granted like well public spaces have tons of litter areas, they have tons of trash cans out there, and I've heard like Japan doesn't actually. Expectation
inner city stuff especially, and this has to do with those the sarin gas attacks that happened on the Tokyo subway. Do you remember? It was similar in London actually. What? Sorry, say again.
I do remember those. Yeah.
Yeah. It's similar in London, actually. When I moved there was big chunks of London, like around Bank and certain other tube stations that didn't have bins because of IRA activity that had gone on in the 90s. So I've heard that they're bringing some more trash cans into Tokyo because what's happened is there's sort of piles of trash have started to accumulate instead. But yeah, obviously they have a culture of, you know, you bring a little plastic bag with you at all times, and if you have any trash you put that in and you bring it home. Definitely in Europe, like every time you go like camping or stay at a hotel, there's like different rules around how that stuff works. Ireland, we have a 3-bin system that's taken, I don't know if it's taken that seriously, but like for instance, the big thing in Ireland now that came in that probably would shock people over here is the levy on bottles and cans. So there is a significant tax levy on any can or bottle. I think it's like 50 cent on each one. And basically, instead of crunching them up and putting them in the recycling bin, you now have to bring them to a machine that will essentially, you have to feed them in individually. I think this stuff has been fixed up a bit. When it first got introduced, there was these massive lines. But yeah, you basically get then a voucher at the end for, you know, a decent amount of money usually, because it's like you put 2 cans in and that's €1. And you know, when you consider how much Irish people like to drink, it's, you know, there's usually a lot of cans lying around. So that's one area in which, like, that's just in the past year, people have had to sort of adapt to being a bit more anal about that. Like I've crunched up bottles in my brother's house and then be like, oh damn it, sorry, you know, because he's supposed to get that money back.
Yeah, I think it's easy to underestimate. Like, I think there are a lot of ways in which American life has this baseline, like, antisocial quality to it. Like, if, like, in the U.S., like, if you want to prevent trash just going everywhere, you have to put down trash cans everywhere.
Right.
Because people will just, like, dump shit then no matter what. And that is kind of the ethos. So it's like the default expected behavior in the U.S. is like, I will just toss my trash there, whatever. And so I can sort of like roll my eyes at this, but at the same time, like this is kind of that level of like, hey, you can't just be tossing your shit wherever you like is kind of a baseline. It really quickly goes the other way, right? The minute one person like tosses a piece of litter somewhere, this is why when I lived in Lowell, like they clean out the canals every year. The second someone threw one tire into a canal, a week later, shopping carts, TVs,
Oh, of course,
couches.
broken window theory in effect. You know, in the UK it's known as, and in Ireland too. Actually, we use the term fly tipping. I don't know why it's called that, but yeah, it's basically like illegal dumping on farmland and stuff like that, and that definitely happens. Yeah, like somebody drives out with a a truck or a car full of crap and just throws it out on the side of the road. And it happens in the US obviously as well. You see lots of signs up saying like, if you're caught, you're going to basically get a massive fine or a prison sentence for doing it. But yeah,
I guess I came way more
called
pro
fly
Switzerland here a little bit.
tipping. Yeah, we're all a little bit fascist. You know what I mean? We're all just in certain types of our life. We're like, no, order is good. Order is.
But also education, I think, is an important thing. Like the TV, the driver's license thing, and like that to me isn't like fascist. That's like, hey, these things are dangerous, and we're going to make sure you are prepared for the stuff you're going to encounter during a lifetime on the road.
Hey, buy a pack of cigarettes in Ireland. See all the lovely pictures on the outside of it. Of like rotten lungs, and we used to have hardcore. I think it was an Irish and a UK thing where we had some really hardcore commercials that were like, if your ball goes into the electrical substation, don't go after it, and we're going to show you what happens to that kid when they go. Yeah, we had some like during the day infomercials that were like,
see a kid get fried.
Oh yeah, like, and the car crash ones in Ireland when I was growing up were insane. They were just like gross and like, super affected people and like shocking, and they'd broadcast them at like 2:00 in the afternoon. You'd be like, Jesus, have you seen the new one? Your man's head gets chopped off. Like I'll have to send you some. They're absolutely
the only
deranged.
equivalent we have of that in the US is eczema commercials. Not for eczema, but for medication.
Oh, right.
To treat
Medication
because that's just everywhere now. You turn at a sporting event and you'll see someone like,
oh yeah,
the worst thing in the world is not being able to wear a sleeveless
summer
dress.
Yeah. Slow to moderate something.
Psoriasis.
Psoriasis. Yeah. I've seen a lot.
All right, Danny, take us to the Grimoire.
Okay, yes. Let's
Any
let's
kids
do it.
run into electrical substations in the Grimoire?
No, unfortunately, there is a death at the top. On May 12th, the McLaren team was mourning the loss of Paul Morgan, who died today in 2001. Morgan founded Ilmore with Mario Ilian and the company that built the Mercedes F1 engines for the McLaren team. Morgan died when his light aircraft crashed. Oh, very sad. Today in 2002, one of the most controversial races of recent times took place at the A1 ring in Austria. Having dominated qualifying and the race, Rubens Barrichello was ordered to yield for teammate Michael Schumacher, which he did on the final lap, much to the disgust of the crowd who booed throughout the podium ceremony. Schumacher tried to push Rubens onto the top step, but the damage was done. Both the blatant use of team orders and the podium debacle earned Ferrari the displeasure of the FIA, who fined them $500,000 and banned team orders. In November 2008, Barrichello claimed he had been threatened with the sack on the last lap if he did not allow Schumacher through. He said, "I was told to think about my contract. For me, that was an order. Is it better for you to lift your foot? Otherwise, you're going to go home." Yeah, it's an infamous moment in F1 history, that one. Yeah, and it's hard, right? Because like Rubens was obviously the victim, but also history has sort of perhaps shown us that sometimes you don't do it. You don't follow the orders, and you win the race. And I'm not sure his F1 career was better after that.
No, it's
incident.
one of those things that I think it was never quite the same. And I think undeniably, Schumacher was the stronger driver of the two. Barrichello was quite good on his day. He was he was brilliant, but it's one of those things. I don't think anyone was served by it. I think the funny thing is, over the time since his career ended, the way I think Schumacher's reputation has kind of shrunk It was so big in the early 2000s. Like, this was the greatest driver of all time, etc.
Michael Jordan of F1.
Yeah, and
As opposed to the Eddie Jordan of F1.
there's too much of the stuff where it's like he bent the rules. He used the position of the team to sort of notch wins he didn't deserve, and that stuff lingers, I think, to a degree where you remember that stuff a lot more than you remember like the brilliant drives or the dominant, like, flag to flag qualifying through race performances. And this, like, that is indelible, him trying to shove Rubens onto the top step of the podium. And it was like, it made him look bad on two levels. One was for like the team order situation giving him the win, but then also not being willing to stand there and be the villain and take it, like to try to be like, no, you're right. Like, we all love Rubens.
Yeah. Lose perhaps in that situation. Have you seen the trailer for The Kaiser, the new Michael Schumacher biopic, which I believe is in German?
It whack, was my feeling.
Okay, it's about his 90. No, is it? I don't actually. Is it about his whole career? I'm not sure. I thought there was another one about his 94 season.
I think it's early career.
Yeah. The Kaiser. Yeah, it's apparently coming out this year. I think it's a Netflix joint. Is it?
I have never heard anyone call him the Kaiser.
The Kaiser? No, me neither. Yeah. Is this just we couldn't get the Schumacher name in there, so we went with the Kaiser? I don't know.
Well, and also, okay, so I'm pretty sure the trailer I saw also, like, the needle drop is Spirit in the Sky. Yes, okay. Any trailer where Spirit in the Sky comes on, I'm like, no, sorry, this sucks. Like, there's something about that guitar riff where it's like, it's trying so hard to be cool, but anytime I see it used in a movie, I'm like, no, man, this sucks. This is going to be lame.
Yeah, I don't. He's also not dead, so I feel like that's a weird song to. Yeah, I don't know. It is interesting how, perhaps families, estates can massage or keep their, I think there's definitely an element of this being also people don't talk about Michael because it's very hard to talk about.
It's a tough thing to talk
Michael
about,
Schumacher. Yeah, for reasons that are very tragic in his family, and obviously
there's been more rumors that his condition is actually improving.
Oh, really?
I feel like I saw more rumors that that there've been more positive signs.
I just hope he's able to communicate with his family a little bit. Like that's ultimately all that matters. And yeah, I just feel so sorry for all of them, all his kids.
But once he sufficiently recovers, then people can be like, and now that Michael's back in our lives, we can say, fuck that guy. He was a prick and I always hated him. Mika Hakkinen's come close to saying it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Even on the Schumacher was it on the Schumacher documentary? It might have been on Beyond the Grid.
Right.
But he's talked about they tried hard to be friends. Didn't take.
Just couldn't do it. Yeah. Hey, look. Yeah. It's a funny old legacy that he has. Hey, look, his legacy is not that bad. He was obviously a great driver. If we want to talk about families whitewashing their, the folks within their family, just go watch that Michael Jackson biopic. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, that one seems like it's maybe one of the most loathsome pieces of media ever constructed. Yeah,
that we might have a new worst family biopic offender in that one. Apparently, his dad also comes across as like a really nice guy, which seems
there it is. I mean, that tells you all you need to know, right?
Yeah, oof. Oh yeah. So anyway.
And it's so funny because these things. I know you need to go, but the last thing I'll say on this is these sort of whitewashing efforts. It's like we can't even acknowledge that there's still a version of the Jackson family story you can tell where like. The dad he may have been a son of a bitch, but you have to admit, like, he created, an entertainment powerhouse, and like it's a complicated man, but you can still tell a story like that fundamentally embraces this notion of, hey, like sometimes, you gotta hand it to the guy in Whiplash. He sure taught that kid to drum.
Oh yeah, that's the ending lesson of Whiplash.
Yeah, like, but the inability to sort of confront anything, right? Where it's got to be like, no, like everyone in the story was great.
Yeah, nothing, no ill, no foul. Hey, look, our recording made it over an hour, so I'm pretty happy about this because, yes, I have to run out the door and record a bunch of interviews in a couple of minutes. Thanks, folks, for being patient with us. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast.
We'll tell you later that you forgot Race Around the World.
It's fine. Yeah, I did, but I didn't have the time. I was like, we're gonna get to the good stuff. Racing Around the World. Rob already covered it. 24 Hours Nurburgring. Go check it out, Max Verstappen fans. Have yourself a fun time. If you'd like to support this show and get access to all our bonus episodes, the ad-free version of the podcast, and the official Shift F1 Discord, you can do so over at patreon.com/ShiftF1. Have a great race weekend, folks. We will see you all next time.